Hi, this is A. Wesley. That ain't you tells it like a TI is. If you like my video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Topic I'm going to talk to you today about is the doctors' wives of Atlanta. Uh, I didn't do that last part. I didn't do that last podcast thing because some of the stuff that I saw, she had already talked about in previous podcasts and also on our YouTube channel about the real and reality TV. And some of the stuff I've already heard, so I didn't do nothing on that one. And then right after she came back from Africa, she had posted something on Instagram about they were gonna have like a Christmas party. And I had got some of the clips over there, and I was just so happy and surprised that Dr. Contessa was there. And she was saying, go T, because she was the first one there. They had a few people, and they were checking the sound because she did say on the flyer they were going to have karaoke type stuff where people could come in and sing. So they was checking the mic, and it was her and Gabby and Kalyla there first, and they were all on stage dancing and singing Christmas songs. And then T got to rapping a little bit. And then next thing you know, T was doing sound check with a DJ, and then she started rapping with him. And then that's when I heard Contessa say, go T." She was up there dancing by herself, and then she was kind of dancing with the sound check man and the DJ. And then she came down and she was saying, Greg said you could come up there and help me dance, and you could dance, and you could come on there and stuff like that. And she said, you got a lot of wiggle room. You come on there and dance and stuff like that. So she came on there and she danced. She said, no, this is your show. This is your party. I don't want to dance. I don't want to dance. And then so after that, I didn't see anything else. And then yesterday, I saw her podcast had came out, and she was talking about relationships and relationships and marriage, and like she said like they said on entry, real life conversations, real friendship. They still kept that in there. So they was wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And they were saying the internet had been going crazy over the last couple of days about about shoot and I was so glad that Gabby kind of started off because for the last couple of episodes, even when Jen was there, it was like Sweet Tea was taking all of the lead as far as reading the questions and stuff like this. So I had said it. I had said it on the Instagram page, and I had also said it, I think, in the comments that I think all of them should kind of share in kind of hosting it at first because I think at first Gabby was kind of afraid and scared of being in front of the camera and stuff because she always been behind stuff, and she was talking about the social media stuff that she go through being online and stuff like that because you need and I understand because it took me a while to get used to being online and social media. Cause like you say, you have social media, be online, you have these negative people and these trolls. But back to the podcast, she read off a question saying, in a relationship, should the man pay everything or should it be 50-50? And she said it was a big debate. And so they say, let's talk about it. And so Sweet Tea said that she was so used to being independent. Her mama always taught her to be independent, even before she met Greg and stuff like that. And she was saying that that uh, that uh, that it was kind of hard for her, but she was saying after she met Greg, and Greg had said something about he thought she was gonna be darker than that. And she said, huh, what? And she was saying that he said something about what his uncle said about dark women. Now I do understand that because my mama used to say that a long time, and one of my brothers did take it literally. And when she said, like, yeah, my mama said, uh, my mama said, my mama said dark skinned women were evil. I said, Mama, that ain't the case. And my mama used to tell us that all the time. I never believed that anyway. But you do have some people that believe stuff what their parents say literally instead of figuratively. And then she said, Greg said that she had ghosted him. And then And then Gabby said she chimed in and said, thinking like that, I would have ghosted him too. I would have did the same thing too. And Kayla said, well, why did he say the way? She said, well, like I said, we grow up around, our uncles and aunts and stuff. As little kids, they say certain stuff. And she was saying, when we were dating, he was saying that that you're gonna have to pay the rent. And Gabby said, what, pay the rent? He wants you to pay everything. She said, nah, and Sweet Tea had to come back and clarify. I said, no, no. She said he had to tell me. He came back when I asked him what he was talking about, and she said he came back and explained I should have to help him on the mortgage and stuff like that. And then Gabby said, oh, okay, I understand now. She said, in my case, if you in my case you want to look at it like this, when my now husband Marcus was in residency, um, I could say that I was paying like 80%, and maybe he was paying like maybe 40 or 20%, maybe 40. I think he said 40. So if I was paying maybe 80, he was paying me maybe paying 40 because he was in residency and he was studying. He wasn't quite a doctor. She said, but now as he's a doctor, he's paying like 99.9% of stuff, and what it is, I might be paying maybe the 20 or the 10%, but either way, it's gonna come out to 100%. And then Kayla chimed in and said, in my case, my fiance Jay, he pays for everything and stuff like that. And I'm kind of living the easy little soft girl life, and it's all right to accept help or do stuff or what. So it's like he handles all the bills and all the finances, and then Gabby said, "Ooh, that's good, that's cool too." And she said, do what fits best, do what fits best for your situation, every situation." And then Sweet Tea chimed in and said, like I said, I helped Greg with the mortgage stuff and stuff like that. And so when Greg found out that I was a veteran, and by me helping him in that house, he paid way more less taxes than what he was paying before he married me. And then so Gabby said, that's good, T, because you did bring something to the table. She said, yeah, he was actually what else do I have to bring to the table? I thought about it and I said, yeah, Greg was making sure whoever he got, it wasn't gonna be another Cord, because I remember on that show that Greg paid for everything. Even though Cord claimed she had that little bit of job as a pharmaceutical thing, when she married Greg, she dropped that job. She quit that job. So I think Greg was looking at he paid everything when he's recording. And then so Sweet Tea said, well, I ain't gonna lie. Before I met Greg, I was in these streets. I was in these streets. I was willy-nilly in these streets. And she said, I ain't gonna throw myself too bad up on the bus, and I ain't gonna be doing, say, but I kind of did something like that. And I was saying, yeah, it is sometimes women think they getting a good man or somebody, and either they wind up paying all the bills, or the man don't do nothing. But anyway, it got back to Kayla, and Kayla was saying, well, when he said he wanted me to be financially stable, he said that even though he handled all the businesses and pay all the bills and stuff, he showed me his investment account, and he said I should have one too in case something happened to me. I agree on that part a little bit with Kayla, but I also think Greg is thinking in his mind, like you said, Greg is over there, you know, over there. I think she said Greg is not June or somewhere over there. But I also know that these men are looking at that if something happened to the marriage, I don't want you trying to sue me for all my money. So he want to make sure that not only do Kayla have her money for herself, but have her money in case something happens and stuff like that. But she put it in case something happened, something happened to him, like as far as death or whatever. But I also was like in the back of his mind, he thinking that if the work relationship don't work out, she won't be trying to get him for all his money. And uh, and then so she said that's why I say that we can learn from each other. And then T chimed in and said, yeah. And she said that's one of the main reasons why I want to date an older, mature man, because I can learn something from him, and he can learn something from me. And I said, Sweetie, you show right. You showed Greg that those ignorant, antiquated ideas weren't gonna fly with you. And by you ghosting him, he realized that he couldn't do you that way. And I said, I was so glad. So the sweet tea is right. She is teaching Greg how to be a little bit more nice and a little bit more humble because some of those antiquated ways he growed up with and stuff like that. And so, she's that's what she said. She hopes she can learn from him, and she hopes she could teach you some things. But Tweety, you are teaching Greg some things because it's a whole lot of stuff that I see that Greg is slowly changing. And like you say, everybody has to learn, have to change and learn. And then they say let's switch to more talking about like you said. That's what Gabby said. Like you said, Kayla, soft like. And then Sweet Tea said, well, I'm so used to being independent. My mama always told me to be independent and stuff like that, even though both her and my dad were working. So it's hard for me to kind of accept somebody helping me. But I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn different. And Gabby said, I'm trying to learn different too and stuff like that. And so Kayla said, well, it's not the fact. It's not the fact that we just so independent. We just grew up in a different time and different time. And then Sweet Tea said, yeah, that was embedded in me. So sometimes we gotta unlearn some of the stuff that we learned. As women and teenagers that our mama was teaching us. And then she said, yeah. I had to learn how to do that. And she said now that by both of us working and stuff like that, she said, yeah, when two people are working, you do have to have help. And I was saying, you sure do have to have help. And so they said, let's switch to the next thing. And we're going to play a game. That's what Gabby said. And then Sweetie said, a game. She said, yeah, we're going to play a game saying either all portions are 50-50. And they were saying, what about paying the rent and the bluff on the mortgage and stuff like that. And then Gabby said, well, the fan wrote in the question and said, well, what if your husband make 3 times the money you make? And then Smoochie said, oh, if he make 3 times the money I make, yeah, he should cover that mortgage all by himself. And then Kayla said, I agree on that. And we all gonna say all portions when it come down to that part. And so she said, what about food? And and at first Kayla said, well, all portions, it depends. And then Sweet Tea said, yeah, it kind of depends. But she said, either way, we going to eat. And then Gabby said, yeah, T, you right. Either way, whether I do it or whether he do it or whether we do it together, we both going to eat. So they both kind of agreed on that one and stuff like that. But she was saying in certain circumstances. But then they also said all portions or majority of it. And then when it got to this part, uh, 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 Gabby read the question. She said, "What about student loans? What about that?" And then Kayla said all portions. And then Gabby said all portions. And then Sweet Tea said, "Hey, wait a minute. What if I wasn't with you when you got them student loans and went to college and stuff? Should I have to pay all your debt for you?" And then so and then so Kayla said, but yeah, but yeah, but we're both doctors now and stuff like that, and maybe you could kind of help out a little bit. And then so that's when Gary said, well, I don't know. Maybe it could be 50-50 on that part because you weren't with me when I was getting those student loans. But if you were with me, like I was saying, when I'm in my situation with Marcus, where we both were going to college and we both were together, and we both, and I was helping him with his residency. Well, then on that part, because we both got student loan together, that maybe on that part, maybe we should pay 50-50. I was saying that's all good and fine. But I agree with Sweet Tea. If I got that student loan debt while I was in college and I didn't met you, well then I should be able to pay that down by myself if you let me pay that down. But going back to that, she said at the end, they were saying they gotta learn how to do that. And then so what you call said that we normally gonna give advice on here. That was Gabby. She said, "But Kayla, what advice you give me since I'm having such a problem trying to trying to get people to help me, especially in my business. In my business, take out. I want to have an assistant. I didn't." Kayla said, "Well, like you said, I really ain't supposed." She said, "But the first thing I would tell you is that when you asking for help." Make sure that person that's helping you is a safe person, a person that you can trust, a person that you can trust with like everything with your personal life, also helping you with your business stuff. If you feel that you can't trust that person, then I don't think you should confide in that person. I say, Kayla, you are so right. I say, because there's so many people that think they have friends, and as soon as they tell their friends something that's private and personal to them, their friend is out there putting it on the internet, talking about them and all kinds of stuff when they get married to them and stuff. So she right about the safe friendship part, because there's certain stuff that I would confide in with my husband, and then there's other stuff that I would just confide in with my sister before she passed away. But now I confide some stuff with my niece, and she confide some stuff with me. Now I used to confide some stuff with my older sister in California, but like Kayla said, one thing I said about told her in privacy, and then she turned around and turned it back on me. So yeah, you got to have be in a safe space when you want to when you asking for help. And also, Kayla said, make sure that person actually wants to help you, and that's what I'm saying. Make sure that person actually wants to help you, and not help you to turn against you and be stuff. And that's why Sweet Tea chimed in and said that's why we're seeing real friends doing real stuff for you that want you to succeed and that want you to be happy and won't go out here and tell your secrets. And so they say, yes, a lot of things that we have to unlearn because we learned it through our parents. And like she said, there was some stuff that her mama told her about, we have to be twice as better as black women and this, that, and that. She said, oh, yeah, we've always, Kayla said, yeah, we've always been taught that. But it's a different time now, so we got to learn differently. And Sweet Tea said, yeah, that's what I'm learning. And they were saying, this was a good conversation, ladies. Let's talk about it in the comments, fans and stuff, and I was so glad that they let Gabby run the whole show. But like I said, in my situation, me and my husband kind of did like Sweet Tea and Greg. We discussed all this stuff while we was dating. After we went on like a couple of dates and stuff. And like I said, whatever works for you, but the 50-50 part worked for me and my husband. Like I said, I pay half on the big bills like the rent and the mortgage and the light bills, and sometimes we'll split the food, and then sometimes he'll pay all for the food, and sometimes I'll pay all for the food. So as far as the food, we're still splitting. So one thing I do like about that, when you do it 50-50, there is a little, not too much discretionary saving, but there's a little something where you can do a little something here and there for yourself if you wanted to. I'm glad they did this conversation so people can talk about it online and in the comments in her section. That's all I have for this video. This is A Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a TI is. I am out.